Hi, everyone. It's Deborah Carter here with Preparation Tech. Another wonderful interview in store for you. Preparation Tech is an interview series where we offer stories and advice to parents, teachers, and school guidance counselors. Today, I'm talking with Babusi Nyoni, who is an amazing, interesting designer and developer based in Amsterdam, but from Zimbabwe. And he is really impressive because he's doing some really cool projects which have a huge impact. And so let's just turn it over to you, Babusi. Introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Cool. Hi, thanks for having me in this interview, Deborah. My name is Babusi. I'm a self-taught Zimbabwean design strategist and innovator, originally from a small city called Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, now based in the Netherlands. And I work in the fields of artificial intelligence and big data innovation, and I focus primarily on developing solutions for sub-Saharan African communities.
That was a mouthful, but very good. So I just read this amazing Financial Times article, which was published earlier, like I think a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it talked about your skill set, which is that you often take technology that's been deployed for entertainment or popular media, and you
Yeah.
can kind of turn it into something that becomes super useful and valuable in solving problems. Can
Yeah.
you give us an example? Maybe talk about your company, Sila Health, and
Yeah.
how you turned a dance app into something that helps doctors treat patients with Parkinson's.
Cool. Yeah, I really like the story of the dance app because it speaks a lot of a lot about the work that I do in trying to contextualize very new technologies for audiences that you wouldn't typically associate with those technologies. And I created this dance app to rate a popular South African dance move called the Vosho, which usually accompanies this genre of music called gqom. And it's something that you would typically find in high density, low to middle income households. It's not, for the affluent. And this app used basically the latest iteration of what is called computer vision, which is the subset of artificial intelligence that looks at the way computers understand things the way humans see them. And I found a way to rate that dance move using this new technology. And the uptake in the communities where this dance is popular was really phenomenal, and it spoke a lot to the way people don't really care about tech, like its complexity and whatnot, as long as there's a context for it. So with that human insight, I decided to find a much more effective way to use this tech to, I guess, improve the same communities and while still leveraging the same insights. And I found that Parkinson's disease diagnosis relies to some extent on symptomatic observation of symptoms that can be parameterized through movement over time, just as we've been able to do with the dance app. And yeah, we just literally took the same formula for the dance move and found a way to measure posture and gait and feet shuffling and whatnot. And yeah, we arrived at that endpoint. I'd started that dance app initially to try and find a way to bring the most high-tech iteration of artificial intelligence to a place where you would never expect it and have it have impact there. Being one of the first people to build with that, immediately people in Silicon Valley, people in Google were like, what is this for sure dance move that this tech is being used for? So just start the conversation around this tech in Black communities and in impoverished communities, and how we can lead the charge in innovation.
I love this story. And what I really love about your story in particular is that you're all self-taught.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a fancy degree in computer science or data science, but you are self-taught. So you understand algorithms,
Yeah.
machine learning, AI. Tell us about how you went from not having a background to really being on the cutting edge of this stuff.
Yeah, I think the story starts back home in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe's second largest city. I grew up in a moderately sized family, just like five of us, four siblings, raised by a single mom who was a civil servant. And if you know anything about economic collapses, it's usually, the civil servants who bear the brunt of, um, inflation and the disparity between income and expenditure. And when the global economic crisis happened in 2008, and Zimbabwe was also faced with a drought and economic sanctions, our family went through a lot. And prior to that, I was meant to go to university, but my mom couldn't afford to take me to law school. So I had just had to enter the workforce, like straight out of high school. I wrote my last exam on a Thursday, and by Monday I was working. I started off in a security company, and I just worked a variety of jobs. I used to, electrify newly built houses, used to paint houses. I worked in a cyber cafe. I used to take wedding portraits and whatnot.
You were
So
doing everything.
I've done everything. And I think the one thing that I picked up throughout this journey was I was able to learn new things really quickly. And I decided to focus on design around about 2011 because I realized it was the thing that I could use my best skill, which is visual art, in the highest paying way. And I moved to South Africa on the back of that. And I transitioned to being a developer around about 2013 because I wasn't happy with the quality of my designs being outputted by the developers that we worked with in that company. And to get to that point, I would spend at least 4 days a week, learning how to code and coding up until about 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning and only sleep 2 hours. And I did this for an entire year. and I literally just changed from this visual person to this super technical person. And from that point on, I just realized if I can learn how to create a WordPress website from scratch, I can definitely learn how to create a machine learning model. I can learn how to do any single thing because I've learned all these things without any technical training or background in them. So literally the only limit is the amount of time I'm willing to put in.
Absolutely. Were you doing online courses?
Yes, online courses. Yeah.
Were you registered for these courses, or were this?
No, not at all. This is literally all freely found resources on YouTube and whatnot. Yeah, but a lot of it is, actual implementation. Like, how do you sit down and decide, I want to build this thing, and then learn all the things that you need to get to that point. I think that was the way that I learned, and it's the way that I've learned since that point. Just have an object, like an objective to work towards, and then learn all the things along the way in order to get there.
I love how you say this. Have the objective first, that
Yeah,
clarity, and
yeah,
then take the small steps that are needed to get there.
exactly.
Which relates to my next question.
Yeah.
You're pretty successful. I mean, you've got this is I love discussing, especially with the African technologists and African professionals. They
Yeah.
don't have just one job. They are like, okay, I've got this skill set and I'm going to slice and dice it all these different ways. I've got a
Yeah.
foundation, I've got a company, and
Yeah.
then what is, I think, the lesson for people in other countries outside of Africa. You guys are really where we need to get to, right?
Yeah.
Because you just have so much more bandwidth and so much more possibilities. What are the main characteristics? What's the mindset that's needed to be successful in technology in the field where you are?
I would say versatility is the most important. Definitely, your work ethic plays a big part in that, but your ability to understand things, new things really well, because the field is moving at a really fast pace. So, to learn something at this point and assume it'll carry you over for the next 2 decades, it doesn't work anymore. Like accounting would allow you to do that back in the day. If you learn how to balance the sheets, then you know how to balance the sheets. But to know, machine learning today is to have to know, how to move when there are advancements in the field, and how to implement these things and how to be relevant in that space really quickly, which is, I guess, the thing that has kind of set me apart from other practitioners in the field, in that I really find easy ways to apply this technology that has just been researched or has just been developed, because it's easy for me to contextualize it. And I guess being from Africa as well, where innovation and ingenuity, it's a matter of survival. I'm able to do it. It's almost like second nature for me.
Yeah. You also have this interesting background. You started off in design.
Yeah.
So you started off on the creative side. And what role does creativity and art play in what you do? Because often, people have the sense that if you're a technologist, oh, you're kind of focused on science, engineering, technology, and you're not so focused on the creative side. And you
Yeah.
seem to be bringing those two together very nicely. What
Yeah.
role does that design and art play in the work that you do?
I think Kanye West said it most succinctly. He said, art is to be free and design is to fix. And for me, I feel artistic when I'm just working on things that are not bound to any implementation, to solve any problem. But I always find a way to, rein it in and find a way to solve problems with the stuff that I do know or the stuff that I'm able to learn. So being a designer allows me to think of problem solving outside of the context of, designing a poster. Because even when you're designing a poster, you're solving a communication problem. How do we arrange this information in a way that it looks appealing, yet, still does the job of conveying as much to the viewer as possible. And when I look at, artificial intelligence, for me, when I started in the field, it was basically the design of data. You have a data set over here, and that's literally that was my approach when I created the prototype to predict Africa's next refugee crisis. I just went to the World Bank data set and I found all these data points, and I looked at patterns. To me, it was literally just patterns. And I was like, wait, there's a possibility that if we model this and this, we could figure out what country would be next, in terms of forced migration. And just that approach to solving, to understanding patterns, to looking at what you have and how you can move it around in order to arrive at point B has been a really great help for me as a creative person.
Yeah. Tell us, can you walk us through a project? And I'm thinking about the modeling you did for Black women's hairstyling.
Oh yeah.
How, just so that people get a sense of how it is that you apply your thinking
Yeah.
to machine learning. Tell us about that project.
Okay, so that
Personal significance for me, by the way.
of course, that project actually was really political. I wrote an article about it that kind of touched on it, but for me, it was, there was a new way to train machine learning models that had just arrived on the scene. And I was trying to find a use case for it that wasn't just specific to me. So Black women's hairstyles is, something that, of course, I'm not a Black woman, but from what I've heard from the Black women around me, it's something that they struggle to find resources around, that they really have to, fine tune their queries when trying to find information that's relevant to, like maybe the curl type of their hair, or how long they've had their braids in or something. There's just so many things that don't cater to them. And I built blackgirlhair.js as a bit of a political statement in terms of training a model specifically for Black women, right? So this was something trained on a data set that only had Black women in it. And it was interesting to see, people trying it out. I had like white friends who'd be like, hey, it thinks I've got X hair. And I'm like, well, you're not a Black woman. So, it was just flipping this bias on its side, because typically these models, these algorithms, they're all tailored for, the global north. They don't factor in, other races, Black women, people of color in general, have lived their entire online existence on hand-me-down algorithms that were built for other people. So this is really looking at how can we train the first machine learning model to understand Black women's hairstyles, but also just be very deliberate about representing this very underrepresented group, and also explaining the process as well to try and bring more Black women into the conversation of machine learning, and how they can start to curate data sets that are relevant to them as well. Sorry, I got a little technical there, but
No, no, that's okay. But take us through, how did you do it? What was the process? How did you get these images? And
it was super easy. I trolled. I won't mention the name, but an image cataloging social network um, where where people would typically pin images that have certain tags or are in certain categories, and I curated my data sets for different hairstyles. Um, and then I started to train the model, and I looked at the accuracy of each of the classifications that I had built. Like for example, the model really struggled to identify buns, like yeah, like a top bun and all that, because machine learning models can only interpret data in a like square format. Most of the images with the top bun were cropped, so it would confuse a shaved head with a top bun, and having to like retrain that and also get a lot of feedback from Black women who would use it as well. It was a big like collaborative process as well, like to ensure that the people for whom it's being built are sufficiently represented enough for it to function, like almost 100% well. And then I looked at a use case for this kind of model, and I decided to plug in a weather API that would give you advice on your hairstyle based on the weather outside.
wow.
Yeah. So if you go to blackgirlhair.js now, like it's a sunny day today, I don't even know what it's going to tell you. So it'll look at the kind of hair that you have, but then based on the weather, it'll tell you, you should probably do this. Like on a cold day, you should probably keep your head wrapped, wear a protective style, on hot days, yeah. It does that. So just finding a nice use case for it that would also justify someone using it frequently as well. Because you might wear your braids, for 6 weeks or something, and you might not have to, keep detecting what hairstyle you're wearing. So how do we use this kind of tech within a context that might be useful to people on a day-to-day basis? And then, yeah, the UX experience was mostly just built to be as simple as possible, and also get people to achieve what they wanted to achieve as quickly as possible as well. And yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. I know
Love
I might have oversimplified a couple of things, but
that. But what you're showing us is that it's really possible because there's already, I would say, pre-built tools that you can use and
exactly.
just just contextualize it.
Exactly. So there are like lots of advancements that have been made in the fields of machine learning and AI that people don't know about, and it's the role of people such as myself who have our fingers on the pulse to speak about these things and to, make examples so that people from underrepresented communities can really look at these things like, wait, you built this dance move, rating thing using this complex tech, and you didn't go to university, like, how do I do it? So it's for me starting these kinds of conversations because we need more people in the room who understand this tech, who can build. Like blackgirlhair.js was just one example of something that I just identified. It's ridiculous that there wasn't a data set like that before. So what more things can we look out for that we can contextualize for our communities, and maybe even open up like what are the conversations we need to be having as well with each other in order to demystify some of these things, and to assist each other also in getting into the fields as well. It's a long conversation, but it's one that is being had and has to be had as well.
Awesome. I love that. My last question to you.
All right.
What advice, and maybe I'll change my mind, but what advice would you give to the adults in kids' lives, the teachers, the parents, and the school guidance counselors in terms of how to engage kids with technology, to get them to care, to get them to be another Babusi who sees this, who is so self-motivated to learn something, but to apply it to an outstanding problem that they don't see is being solved?
Yeah. I definitely think that, just allowing children to dream is super important. Not to sound cheesy, but to not place any limitations between where they see themselves now, and what they hope to build or what they hope to be. That's really, really important. I think your role is to look at how you can equip them with the tools in order to get to where they need to be, or equip them with the mindset, but don't stand in the way of this thing that, you know, your teen like sees in their vision. If they want to be that, then it's really your job to your job to empower them with the skills needed to get to that point. And I've been like really fortunate to have a mother like the one that I have, in that she she's a teacher, but you know, when I was writing my first maths examination when I was 16 in what we call Form 4, she told me I didn't have to study for maths if I don't think I'm good at maths, because she knows I'll be good at other things, which is like super risky. It's like it's a career suicidal thing, you know, for someone to progress into the workforce without a maths qualification. But I think, you know, she knew that as long as I set my mind towards doing something, I would definitely do it and I would see it through. So if maths isn't the thing for me, maybe I could have been a professional juggler if I wanted, and she would have let me do that, you know. So just don't stand in the way of what your kids think, you know, they can be, or what they can do, because I promise that that will pay out later on in life. That confidence is, I think, it's what's brought me this far.
Absolutely. And I know there's amazing things ahead for you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Babusi. This was an excellent interview. And I think, you know, for the folks out there that watch this video, self-taught, self-made, it's all down to the mindset and the work ethic, as you said.
Yeah.
And there's a bright future for people who understand tech. Thank you so much for this interview. And I am going to be following you closely to see what you come up with next.
Thank you so much for having me, Deborah. And yeah, I hope to see you on the timeline.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.